two sets of fans could be. It was that friendship, it gave quite a lot of strength to the city of Liverpool as much as anything else, that they could have this strong bond, that everything didn't have to be a rivalry. Again, a lot of that came through going back from the time of men like John McKenna. His other role as president of the Football League, he also became vice president of the English Football Association. And as part of his role in both those associations, he became known as Honest John McKenna, because he was very, very opposed to the idea of any kind of betting or football betting prior to the games. Football pools was becoming very popular in the mid-1920s. McKenna was very against this. He just had this idea that it was leaving games open to the fact that they could be fixed, or that players or fans would try and fix games. So what became known as the Pools Wars in the early 1930s, McKenna had decided as president of the Football League that he wouldn't release the fixtures each week until a Friday. I don't know how that worked, but it'd be a nightmare nowadays for the fans if we only found out every Friday we were playing on the Saturday. But back in the 30s, they probably didn't have so many fans from Ireland going to games and what have you. But he was very adamant against football pools. Following in 1936, in March 1936, following a meeting of the English Football League where they were discussing what had become known as the Pools War, McKenna, who was at that stage, he was 81 years of age, and still as sprightly as ever, and still president of the English Football League and vice president of the English Football Association. He unfortunately slipped on a railway platform and injured himself. He recovered sufficiently to attend a game between England and Scotland. It was an amateur international the following week. But coming home from that game, he took very ill, and he died that evening. So, 81 years of age. Having said that, despite his age, his death kind of rocked the football world, and it was at his funeral in St Margaret's Church in Liverpool. It was probably a funeral that, even to this day, maybe George Best's funeral saw quite an outpouring of grief. But for the time, at the time, there certainly hadn't been anything like McKenna's funeral. Football dignitaries came from all over Europe, all over the world actually, to pay their tributes to him. And again, obviously, the chief mourners came from both Liverpool and Everton Football Club. We had 3 players from Liverpool and 3 players from Everton actually carried his coffin into the church on the day. Prior to the funeral, there had been a meeting of 100 kind of officials at Anfield Football Club, where they had their own private ceremony to remember everything that McKenna had done for the club, which, as you've just heard, was quite significant. Following a year after his death, just moving on, a few problems, you can't really see that one too well. That was a kind of a plaque that was erected by William Cuff, the Everton president, at Anfield, which is still there now, to honour everything that John McKenna had done for the club. Also in the same month, in March 1937, Liverpool played a home game against Preston North End, and the programme for that game was completely dedicated to John McKenna. In that programme, he was described as a football genius, which was some compliment for a man from Monaghan. So, just really summing up on the life of John McKenna, then we look particularly at his achievements at Liverpool Football Club. I would suggest that, apart from Bill Shankly and John Holding, obviously because Holding set the club up, there can't be many more people who've had as much of an impact at Liverpool Football Club as John McKenna. I think he's left 5 legacies that, if you were to look at the momentous moments during his time at Liverpool, I think the first would be the fact that he supported John Holding in setting up the new club, Liverpool Football Club. It would be very easy for him to have jumped ship with everybody else that went to Everton, but he didn't. He stayed loyal to Holding, and he was prepared to take on this new club. His second great achievement was obviously gaining Liverpool entry into the English Football League. That was considering there was quite a lot of opposition to the club at the time to going into the English Football League. That was his second greatest achievement. His third greatest achievement was getting Liverpool re-promoted into the English First Division after being relegated from the First Division, to get them promoted back into it again, because it gave them another footing to get back into that division. His fourth great achievement was bringing in the legendary manager Tom Watson. As everybody's heard, Tom Watson went on then to win 2 league titles with Liverpool and really established them as a very powerful force in the English game, which they still are to this day. And then his fifth great achievement, possibly my personal favourite, was the development of the Cop Terrace. I mean, anybody who's ever spent time standing in the Cop before a Liverpool game or during a Liverpool game will appreciate, just what that means to all of us. So I'd just like to finish by saying that, considering that he was, if you look at his history and the fact that he is from Monaghan and that he was born and reared in this area, that there can't be any other Irishman that's possibly had as much of an influence on the game of football in Britain, when you consider how big it is in Britain, and British football has always been quite central to the game of football in general across the world. So the people in Monaghan should be very, very proud of the fact of what this man did in that history. I'd just like to finish by saying that he was possibly the greatest Irishman that's been involved in English football.
Thanks very much, Keith, for a very interesting and informative talk, Liverpool and John McKenna. We've come now to the main event, and that's the unveiling of the plaque.